And did you also know that I was muted? Anyway, so welcome in, everybody. I'm a little late starting. I'm a silly. I can't believe I was muted the whole time. The whole time. You guys didn't hear a thing that I had said. It's totally fine. We got this. We can do this. So what I was saying is start a little later than I expected, but it's because I got a new cat today. His name is Tuxedo Bond, and I'm going to be posting a picture of him on Twitter in a little while. Maybe not today, but check out my Instagram and my Twitter, and you will be able to see him. He's getting acclimated to the house right now, but he's so sweet. He was my little outside cat friend last year, and he he seemed like somebody's pet, but like he disappeared and then showed up today. And honestly, like the last time I saw him last fall, I said to myself, if he comes by one more time, I'm pulling him inside and he's gonna be my cat. Well, he showed up today, and so he gets to live with me now. And Miko. Maybe if I can probably try to get him real quick, if you guys don't mind. You know what? Actually, I'll do it a little later on. And then, yeah. And then we can do that. Okay. So we are starting on page 211, I believe. Hang on. I can't remember. Was I reading Jonathan Harker's journal? Or was... Okay, so I'm gonna start over on page 209 with Jonathan Harker's journal. Mainly because I don't know exactly where I finished on this page, and I don't want to start... What's this? Okay, I don't want to start like in the middle of a journal entry or a diary or a letter, you know. So let me take another sip of my drink. Hang on, I sent a picture of the cat to my ex's sister. So I'm responding to... I'm talking about the cat, okay? Okay. No more phone. So we're going to start Jonathan Harker's journal. Just a friendly reminder, during like each passage, like each journal entry or each letter or whatever, I will be catching up with chat, but during those times, like while I'm reading, I'm not going to be paying attention. and I believe all sound alerts are off. Jonathan Harker's Journal, September 26. I thought never to write in this diary again, but the time has come. When I got home last night, Mina had supper ready, and when we had supped, she told me of Van Helsing's visit and of her having given him the 2 diaries copied out, and how anxious she had been about me. She showed me in the doctor's letter that all I wrote down was true. It seemed to have made a new man of me. It was the doubt as to the reality of the whole thing that knocked me over. I felt impotent and in the dark and distrustful. But now that I know, I am not afraid, even of the Count. He has succeeded after all, then, in his design in getting to London. And it was he I saw. He has got younger, and how? Van Helsing is the man to unmask him and hunt him out, if he is anything like what Mina says. We sat late and talked it all over. Mina is dressing, and I shall call at the hotel in a few minutes and bring him over. He was, I think, surprised to see me. When I came into the room where he was and introduced myself, he took me by the shoulder and turned my face round to the light and said, after sharp scrutiny, "But Madam Mina told me you were ill, that you had a shock." It was so funny to hear my wife called Madam Mina by this kindly, strong-faced old man. I smiled and said, "I was ill. I have had a shock. But you have cured me already." "And how?" "By your letter to Mina last night. I was in doubt, and then everything took a hue of unreality, and I did not know what to trust, even the evidence of my own senses. Not knowing what to trust, I did not know what to do, and so had only to keep on working, in what I had hitherto been the groove of my life. The groove ceased to avail me, and I mistrusted myself. Doctor, you don't know what it is to doubt everything, even yourself. No, you don't. You couldn't with eyebrows like yours." He seemed pleased and laughed as he said, "So, you are physiognomist." Okay. So, physiognomist. I'm going to type that in chat, and if anybody wants to look up that word and get us the definition, that would be amazing. Hang on, I gotta make sure I spelled it right, because this is quite the word. Physiogno. Oh, I put too many O's. I mean N's. Okay. Nomist. Yeah, that's the word. Okay. Cosmo Nanaki, welcome in. How are you? I know I said I wasn't going to check on the chat until after I was done with the section. However, I had already paused. And hi, how are you? Lovely to see you. Wish you were here next to me, reading to me while I go to sleep IRL. Oh, well, I hope you enjoy the story time. Okay, so you are physiognomist. I learn more here with each hour. I am with so much pleasure coming to you to breakfast, and oh, sir, you will pardon praise from an old man, but you are blessed in your wife. I would listen to him go on praising Mina for a day, so I simply nodded and stood silent. She is one of God's women fashioned by his own hand to show us men and other women that there is a heaven where we can enter and that its light can be here on earth. So true, so sweet, so noble, so little an egoist. And that, let me tell you, is much in this age, so skeptical and selfish. And you, sir, I have read all the letters to poor Miss Lucy, and some of them speak of you. So I know you since some days from the knowing of others. But I have seen your true self since last night. You will give me your hand, will you not? And let us be friends for all our lives. We shook hands, and he was so earnest and so kind that it made me quite choky. And now, he said, may I ask you for some more help? I have a great task to do, and I'm at the beginning. It is to know. You can help me here. Can you tell me what went before your going to Transylvania? Later on, I may ask more help, and of a different kind, but at first this will do. Look here, sir, I said. Does what you have to do concern the Count? It does, he said solemnly. Then I am with you heart and soul. As you go by the 10:30 train, you will not have time to read them, but I shall get the bundle of papers. You can take them with you and read them in the train. After breakfast, I saw him to the station. When we were parting, he said, Perhaps you will come to town if I send to you, and take Madam Mina too. We shall both come when you will. We shall both come when you will. So like when he... I said. I had got him the morning papers and the London papers of the previous night, and while we were talking at the carriage window, waiting for the train to start, he was turning them over. His eye suddenly seemed to catch something in one of them, the Westminster Gazette. I knew it by the color, and he grew quite white. He read something intently, groaning to himself, mein Gott, so soon, so soon. I do not think he remembered me at the moment. Just then, the whistle blew, and the train moved off. This recalled him to himself, and he leaned out the window and waved his hand, calling out, Love to Madam Mina. I shall write so soon as ever I can. One who physiognomist. One who studies or is an expert in physiognomy. One who studies the outer appearance of the person, primarily the face, to acquire knowledge of the inner personality. That's a very interesting word. I have never heard that before. I feel like I should start like writing down all the words. Hang on, let me get one of my let me get my new notebook. I got a new notebook and a couple new pens. So I will be right back in just a second. I'm gonna start writing down the words. I'll be right back. Hang on. Wishing you all lovely story time and a great daylight. Or day-night. Why did I say daylight? Well, thank you so much. Okay, so I got this really cute notebook and I love it so much. I wish it was pink though. So we're gonna write down physiognomist. So physiognomist. Okay, and what should the title of the list be? Man, I love making lists. Okay. Vocabulary words? Perfect. Ta-da! Can you see it? I mean, it's backwards, but like, oh, don't judge me. I don't care. I like my camera being backwards better. Okay, here is the bookmark. So now we have a vocabulary list. I'm so excited. All right. Time to carry on. Man, I gotta get comfortable again. See, I love blankets. But the blanket has to be sitting like just right, you know? Master Pate knows. It's all about having that blanket in the right position. All right. It is a thing. Like my tootsies were uncovered. Okay. Let's get comfy. Alright. Dr. Seward's diary. September 26th. Truly, there is no such thing as finality. Not a week since I said finis, and yet here I am. I don't even know if I said that right, but appreciate the shout out for the job. And yet here I am starting fresh again, or rather going on with the same record. Until this afternoon, I had no cause to think of what is done. Renfield had become, to all intents, as sane as he ever was. He was already well ahead with his fly business, and he had just started in the spider line also, so he had not been of any trouble to me. I had a letter from Arthur, written on Sunday, and from it I gather that he is bearing up wonderfully well. Quincy Morris is with him, and that is much of a help, for he himself is a bubbling well of good spirits. Quincy wrote me a line too, and from him I hear that Arthur is beginning to recover something of his old buoyancy. So as to them, all my mind is at rest. As for myself, I was settling down to my work with the enthusiasm which I used to have for it, so that I might fairly have said that the wound which poor Lucy left on me was becoming... We've got another word. I don't even know how to pronounce this, so I'm actually going to look it up myself, but I'm going to type it in the chat again. Isn't it? Is it loud enough? I don't even know how to pronounce this word, so I'm going to type it in the chat. And then it's CICATRISED. Doesn't drown the reading, but can hear it in pot. Oh, great. I love that. CICATRISED. Okay. If you could, anybody, when you put the definition, put the pronunciation for me too. I don't know, like, what the C's sound like. Is it cicatrized? Cicatrized. Okay. Thank you. Heal by scar formation. Tries. Sorry. Cicatrized. Right? Okay, I'm done saying it. Okay. Oh, yes. Lucy, okay. I was settling down to my work with the enthusiasm which I used to have for it, so that I might fairly have said that the wound which poor Lucy left on me was becoming cicatrized. Everything is, however, now reopened, and what is to be the end, God only knows. I have an idea that Van Helsing thinks he knows too, but he will only let out enough at a time to whet curiosity. He went to Exeter yesterday and stayed there all night. Today he came back and almost bounded into the room at about 5:30 and thrust last night's Westminster Gazette into my hand. "What do you think of that?" he asked as he stood back and folded his arms. I looked over the paper, for I really did not know what he meant, but he took it from me and pointed out a paragraph about children being decoyed away at Hampstead. It did not convey much to me until I reached a passage where it described small puncture wounds on their throats. An idea struck me, and I looked up. "Well," he said, "it is like poor Lucy's. And what do you make of it?" "Simply that there is some cause in common. Whatever it was that injured her has injured them." I did not quite understand his answer. "That is true indirectly, but not directly." "How do you mean, Professor?" I asked. I was a little inclined to take his seriousness lightly, for, after all, 4 days of rest and freedom from burning, harrowing anxiety does help to restore one's spirits. But when I saw his face, it sobered me. Never even in the midst of our despair about poor Lucy had he looked more stern. Tell me, I said. I can hazard no opinion. I do not know what to think, and I have no data on which to found a conjecture. Conjecture. Do you mean to tell me, friend John, that you have no suspicion as to what poor Lucy died of, not after all the hints given, not only by events, but by me? Of nervous prostration following great loss or waste of blood. And how was the blood lost or wasted? I shook my head. He stepped over and sat down beside me and went on. You are a clever man, friend John. You reason well, and your wit is bold, but you are too prejudiced. You do not let your eyes see nor your ears hear, and that which is outside your daily life is not of account to you. Do you not think that there are things which you cannot understand, and yet which are? That some people see things that others cannot? But there are things old and new which must not be contemplated by men's eyes, because they know, or think they know, some things which other men have told them. It is the fault of our science that it wants to explain all, and if it explain not, then it says there is nothing to explain. But yet we see around us every day the growth of new beliefs, which think themselves new, and which are yet but the old, which pretend to be young, like the fine ladies at the opera. I suppose now you do not believe in corporal transference, no? Nor in materialization, no? Nor in astral bodies, no? Nor in the reading of thought, no? Nor in hypnotism. Yes, I said. Charcot has proved that pretty well. He smiled as he went on. Then you are satisfied as to it, yes? And of course then you understand how it acts, and can follow the mind of the great Charcot. Alas, that he is no more. Into the very soul of the patient that he influenced. No? Then, friend John, am I to take it that you simply accept fact and are satisfied to let from premise to conclusion be a blank? No? Then tell me, for I am student of the brain, how you accept hypnotism and reject the thought reading. Let me tell you, my friend, that there are things done today in electrical science which would have been deemed unholy by the very men who discovered electricity, who would themselves not so long before had been burned as wizards. There are always mysteries in life. Why was it that Methuselah Okay. Why was it that Methuselah lived 900 years, and old Parr 169, and yet that poor Lucy, with 4 men's blood in her poor veins, could not leave even... There's a fly on my nose. Could not live even one day, for had she lived one more day, we could save her. Do you know all the mystery of life and death? Do you know the altogether of comparative anatomy, and can say wherefore the qualities of brutes are in some men and not in others? Can you tell me why, when other spiders die small and soon, that one great spider lived for centuries in the tower of the old Spanish church, and grew, till on descending he could drink the oil of all the church lamps? Can you tell me why in the Pampas, aye, and elsewhere, there are bats that come at night and open the veins of cattle and horses, and suck dry their veins? How in some islands of the western seas there are bats which hang on the trees all day, that those who have seen describe as like giant nuts or pods, and that when the sailors sleep on the deck, because that it is hot, flit down on them, and then in the morning are found dead men, white as even Miss Lucy was. Good God, Professor, I said, starting up. Do you mean to tell me that Lucy was bitten by such a bat, and that such a thing is here in London in the 19th century? He waved his hand for silence and went on. Can you tell me why the tortoise lives more long than generations of men? Why the elephant goes on till he have seen dynasties, and why the parrot never die only of a bite of cat or dog or other complaint? Can you tell me why men believe in all ages and places that there are some few who live on always, if they be permit? That there are men and women who cannot die? We all know, because science has vouched for the fact that there have been toads shut up in rocks for thousands of years, shut in one so small hole that only hold him since the youth of the world. Can you tell me how the Indian fakir can make himself to die and been buried and his grave sealed and corn sowed on it and the corn reaped and be cut and sown and reaped and cut again, and then men come and take away the unbroken seal, and there lie the Indian fakir not dead, but that rise up and walk amongst them as before? Here I interrupted him. I was getting bewildered. He so crowded on my mind his list of nature's eccentricities and possible impossibilities that my imagination was getting fired. I had a dim idea that he was teaching me some lesson, as long ago he used to do in his study at Amsterdam. But he used then to tell me the thing, so that I could have the object of thought in mind all the time. But now I was without his help, yet I wanted to follow him. So I said, Professor, let me be your pet student again. Tell me the thesis, so that I may apply your knowledge as you go on. At present I am going in my mind from point to point as a madman, and not a sane one follows an idea. I feel like a novice blundering through a bog in a mist, jumping from one tussock to another in the mere blind effort to move on, without knowing where I am going. That is good image, he said. Well, I shall tell you. My thesis is this. I want you to believe. To believe what? To believe in things that you cannot. Let me illustrate. I heard once of an American who so defined faith, that which enables us to believe things which we know to be untrue. For one, I follow that man. He meant that we shall have an open mind and not let a little bit of truth check the rush of a big truth, like a small rock does a railway truck. We get the small truth first. Good. We keep him, and we value him, but all the same we must not let him think himself all the truth in the universe. Then you want me not to let some previous conviction injure the receptivity of my mind with regard to some strange matter. Do I read your lesson all right? Hello, Carol D. Welcome in. You are my favorite pupil still. It is worth to teach you. Now that you are willing to understand, you have taken the first step to understand. You think then that those so small holes in the children's throats were made by the same that made the holes in Miss Lucy. I suppose so. He stood up and said solemnly, Then you are wrong. Oh, were it so, but alas, no. It is worse, far, far worse. Thank you. In God's name, Professor Van Helsing, what do you mean? I cried. He threw himself with a despairing gesture into a chair and placed his elbows on the table, covering his face with his hands as he spoke. What? Sorry. They were made by Miss Lucy. Okay. Oh my god. So, I'm pausing for a second because this is my first read through of this story. Oh my god. And it's the end of the chapter. So, I'm going to talk for a second. I'm so sorry. I'm so excited right now. So we were reading in that chapter where Van Helsing saw in the newspaper, he saw that there were kids that were being led astray and were found dead with the puncture wounds in their throat. Well, what Van Helsing just said to is it Dr. Seward? I think it's Dr. Seward. So what he was saying to Dr. Seward is that it wasn't the same thing that was biting Lucy. it wasn't Dracula sucking the blood from these children, but Lucy, who was turned vampire by Dracula. Don't ask me why my words worded that way, but that's what it was. That's why. Yes. No, I haven't seen the movie. I know the story. I'm a big vampire fan, I guess. Some of my favorite books are the Vampire Chronicles by Anne Rice, which unfortunately they're copyrighted, so I won't be reading them on stream. But they're really good. If you haven't read them, definitely, they are really good. I haven't watched the movie Dracula, but I feel like I should after I do the. I'm gonna watch it after I finish the book. But what a moment finding out that it was Lucy who's turned now. I mean, we knew she had, because like how she was behaving in the last bit. Okay. So now we're on chapter 15. And this is after, so we are in Dr. Seward's diary still, after Van Helsing says they were made by Miss Lucy. I wish I could talk like the characters. Maybe I will eventually. Okay. For a while, sheer anger mastered me. It was as if he had during her life struck Lucy on the face. I smote the table hard and rose up as I said to him, "Dr. Van Helsing, are you mad?" He raised his head and looked at me, and somehow the tenderness of his face calmed me at once. "Would I were," he said. "Madness were easy to bear compared with truth like this. Oh, my friend, why, think you, did I go so far round? Why take so long to tell so simple a thing? Was it because I hate you and have hated you all my life? Was it because I wished to give you pain? Was it that I wanted, now so late, revenge for that time when you saved my life, and from a fearful death? Ah, no, forgive me," said I. He went on, "My friend, it was because I wished to be gentle in the breaking to you, for I know you have loved that so sweet lady. But even yet I do not expect you to believe. It is so hard to accept at once any abstract truth, that we may doubt such to be possible when we have always believed the no of it. It is more hard still to accept so sad a concrete truth, and of such a one as Miss Lucy. Tonight I go to prove it. Dare you come with me?" This staggered me. A man does not like to prove such a truth. Byron excepted from the category, jealousy, and prove the very truth he most abhorred. He saw my hesitation and spoke. "The logic is simple. No madman's logic this time, jumping from tussock to tussock in a misty fog. If it be not true, then proof will be relief. At worst, it will not harm. If it be true, ah, there's the dread, yet every dread should help my cause, for in it is some need of belief. Come, I tell you what I propose. First, that we go off now and see that child in the hospital. Dr. Vincent of the North Hospital, where the papers say the child is friend of mine, and I think of yours since you were in class at Amsterdam. He will let 2 scientists see his case. If he will not let 2 friends... Wait. What? Wait, let me reread that. That didn't make sense to me. He will let 2 scientists see his case if he will not let 2 friends. Okay, I get it now. We shall tell him nothing, but only that we wish to learn. And then, he took a key from his pocket and held it up. And then we spend the night, you and I, in the churchyard where Lucy lies. This is the key that locked the tomb. I had it from the coffin man to give to Arthur. My heart sank within me, for I felt that there was some fearful ordeal before us. I could do nothing, however, so I plucked up what heart I could and said that we had better hasten, as the afternoon was passing. We found the child awake. It had had a sleep and taken some food, and altogether was going on well. Dr. Vincent took the bandage from its throat and showed us the punctures. There was no mistaking the similarity to those which had been on Lucy's throat. They were smaller, and the edges looked fresher. That was all. We asked Vincent to what he attributed them, and he replied that it must have been a bite of some animal, perhaps a rat. But for his own part, he was inclined to think that it was one of the bats which are so numerous on the northern heights of London. Out of so many harmless ones, he said, there may be some wild specimen from the south of a more malignant species. Some sailor may have brought one home, and it managed to escape. Or even from the zoological gardens, a young one may have got loose, or one be bred there from a vampire. These things do occur, you know. Only 10 days ago a wolf got out, and was, I believe, traced up in this direction. For a week after, the children were playing nothing but Red Riding Hood on the heath and in every alley in the place until this Bloofer lady scare came along. Bloofer lady. Since when it has begun quite a gala time with them. Even this poor little mite, when he woke up today, asked the nurse if he might go away. When she asked him why he wanted to go, he said he wanted to play with the Bloofer lady. I hope, said Van Helsing, that when you are sending the child home you will caution its parents to keep strict watch over it. These fancies to stray are most dangerous, and if the child were to remain out another night it would probably be fatal, but in any case I suppose you will not let it away for some days. Certainly not for a week at least, longer if the wound is not healed. Our visit to the hospital took more time than we had reckoned on, and the sun had dipped before we came out. When Van Helsing saw how dark it was, he said, "There is no hurry. It is more late than I thought. Come, let us seek somewhere that we may eat, and then we shall go on our way." We dined at Jack Straw's castle, along with a little crowd of bicyclists and others who were genially noisy. About 10 o'clock we started from the inn. It was then very dark, and the scattered lamps made the darkness greater when we were once outside their individual radius. The professor had evidently noted the road we were to go, for he went on unhesitatingly, but as for me, I was in quite a mix-up as to locality. As we went further, we met fewer and fewer people, till at last we were somewhat surprised when we met even the patrol of horse police going their usual suburban round. At last we reached the wall of the churchyard, which we climbed over with some little difficulty, for it was very dark, and the whole place seemed so strange to us. We found the Westender tomb. The professor took the key, opened the creaky door, and standing back politely but quite unconsciously, motioned me to precede him. There was a delicious irony in the offer, in the courtliness of... Jesus Christ! Sorry. That startled me. So, pause for a second. Did you hear it? Or did you just see... Did you just... You were... So, I got a new cat. Welcome in, Travi. How are you? I'm gonna pause for a second because that scared the crap out of me. So I got a new cat, and his name is Tuxedo Bond. I've been introducing him to people as Bond, Tuxedo Bond, of course, because I'm silly. Uh, so last year he was coming around my house, and like he was so sweet and he's so loving, and it was like he was obviously somebody's pet. Not Peter Parker. Oh, that'd be cute, but no. When I show him to you guys, you'll understand. Uh, so like it was like last fall. He would. Oh, wouldn't he? Right? Oh my God. Um, you're sidetracking me. Hang on. When Miko and Bond have babies, well, I'll keep one. So he came around during the fall of last year, and he was so sweet and loving, and obviously somebody's pet. And it was like for weeks I would see him every single day, and I would love on him and everything. And so I was like, you know what, if he shows up one more time, I'm gonna just keep him, take care of him, because it's not stealing the cat. So then he just disappeared. He never came back. And I was like, oh, okay, bye. I hope you're okay. Because it started getting colder. So, like, today I come home from the store, and I see him. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So I'm like super happy to see Cat, right? And so like I pick him up and I'm loving on him, and I'm noticing that he's a lot skinnier than he was last time I saw him. And just the fact that he's lost weight, because he was pretty good before. Like, he was pretty healthy. But yeah, so he's skinnier. So I'm thinking maybe he's not really being fed, right? Other than like hunting and stuff. So brought him inside, named him, gave him some food. The kids love him. But he and Miko are still getting used to each other. Oh, he's gonna get loved on so much. Alright. So, if this cat'll be nice, I can continue. We dined at Jack Straw's castle, along with a little crowd of bicyclists and others who were genially noisy. About 10 o'clock, we started from the inn. It was then very dark, and the scattered lamps made the darkness greater when we were once outside their individual radius. The professor had evidently noted the road we were to go, for he went on unhesitatingly, but as for me, I was in quite a mix-up as to locality. As we went further, we met fewer and fewer people, till at last we were somewhat surprised when we met even the patrol of horse police, going their usual suburban round. At last we reached the wall of the churchyard, which we climbed over with some little difficulty, for it was very dark, and the whole place seemed so strange to us. We found the Westenra tomb. The professor took the key, opened the creaky door, and standing back politely but quite unconsciously, motioned me to precede him. There was a delicious irony in the offer, in the courtliness of giving preference on such a ghastly occasion. My companion followed me quickly and cautiously drew the door to. After carefully ascertaining that the lock was a falling and not a spring one, in the latter case we should have been in a bad plight. Then he fumbled in his bag, and taking out a matchbox and a piece of candle, proceeded to make a light. The tomb in the daytime, and when wreathed in fresh flowers, had looked grim and gruesome enough. But now, some days afterwards, when the flowers hung lank and dead, their whites turning to rust and their greens to browns, when the spider and the beetle had resumed their accustomed dominance, when time discolored stone, and dust-encrusted mortar, and rusty dank iron, and tarnished brass, and clouded silver plating gave back the feeble glimmer of a candle, the effect was more miserable and sordid than could have been imagined. It conveyed irresistibly the idea that life, animal life, was not the only thing which could pass away. Van Helsing went about his work systematically, holding his candle so that he could read the coffin plates, and so holding it that the sperm dropped in white patches which congealed as they touched the metal. He made assurance of Lucy's coffin, another search in his bag, and he took out a turnscrew. "What are you going to do?" I asked. "To open the coffin. You shall yet be convinced." Straightway he began taking out the screws and finally lifted off the lid, showing the casing of lead beneath. The sight was almost too much for me. It seemed to be as much an affront to the dead as it would have been to have stripped off her clothing in her sleep whilst living. I actually took hold of his hand to stop him. He only said, "You shall see," and again fumbling in his bag took out a tiny fret saw, striking the turnscrew through the lead with a swift downward stab which made me wince. He made a small hole, which was however big enough to admit the point of the saw. I had expected a rush of gas from the weak old corpse. We doctors, who have had to study our dangers, have to become accustomed to such things, and I drew back towards the door. But the professor never stopped for a moment. He sawed down a couple of feet along one side of the lead coffin, and then across and down the other side, taking the edge of the loose flange. He bent it back toward the foot of the coffin, and holding up the candle into the aperture, motioned to me to look. I drew near and looked. The coffin was empty. It was certainly a surprise to me, and gave me a considerable shock. But Van Helsing was unmoved. He was now